Okay, we're rolling.
This is an interview at the Buffalo Area County Historical Society, Buffalo, New York, 25th of October 2006, approximately 9 a.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your name, full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
My name is Carl George Kopp, and I was born May 30th, 1932 in Wales, New York.
Okay, what was your educational background prior to entering service?
I had graduated from high school and had 1 year of college education at Prince Edward College Institute.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
Okay. And you were drafted into the Army when?
October 16th, 1952.
Okay. Where did you go for your basic training?
A group of us from Western New York, most all of us came in on Port 89, and we were sent to Camp Breckenridge in Kentucky, which at that time was the 101st Airborne Training Division. They were doing primarily infantry training at that time.
Mm-hmm. How long was your basic?
My basic was 16 weeks.
Did you receive
heavy weapons?
Pardon?
In heavy weapons.
Heavy weapons. Did you receive any additional training beyond that?
Yes, I went on to 8 weeks additional training in leadership school.
Okay. Where was that?
That was at Breckenridge.
That was also there, okay.
That was a school that dealt primarily with small group operations, and how to respond and set them up.
In retrospect, when you went to Korea, do you think that training you had prepared you for what you faced there?
The training that we had received was very good, but the manner in which we were sent into combat wasn't so good. And because if we would have been sent in with the people we had trained with, we would have probably been much better organized and able to work together, which is so important.
Were you sent in as replacement?
We were sent in as replacements.
Okay. When did you end up going over to Korea?
I went to Korea the end of May in 1953.
Okay. How did you go over to Korea?
We went by boat out of Seattle, Washington, through Tucson. It took us several weeks to get across. Went through a typhoon.
How was that?
It was rough. I spent most of my time up above board, up on the deck where the air was fresh.
Okay, where did you land in Korea? Did you go directly to Korea?
We went into Japan. Down in the southern island, and then we spent a couple of days there, and then we were shipped out up by boat, by ship to Inchon. And we were transported in like lots of other troops were at that time.
So at that time, then you went in and you became a replacement. Where were you sent? How long was it before you were sent to a unit?
Only about a week or so after we had gotten into this southern island of Japan. We were already in Korea and in the camp where the 3rd Infantry Division distributed their replacements. And it was up in the Puchon River Valley areas where we were at that time.
What unit were you assigned to?
I was assigned to the 3rd Division, 7th Regiment, and Item Company.
Okay. How long had they been in combat? And you,
At the time that my company was in combat, they had just, at that time, the Chinese were, and the United States were trading hills back and forth. And the hill that we were on had been captured, taken by the Chinese about perhaps maybe the week before. And the company there had been virtually wiped out. They went back again, and my company was, the company went in the cleanup operation after the hill had been taken back. And so they had suffered some casualties, and we went in to replace those.
Mhm.
Two men from myself and one other man from our leadership training camp in Breckenridge went in.
Okay, so you at least knew someone when you
Yeah,
went in
a
there.
friend of mine who went in with me was put in the platoon next to mine.
Mhm.
We were both in item company. The first night online that we were up there, he was out on patrol and lost his leg in a minefield. It happened that quick.
Mhm.
What rank were you at that point?
At that time, I was a private E2, and when we graduated from school, we didn't receive any promotion or any additional ranking.
Most of your duties then were they night patrols or?
Yes, most of my duties were night patrols.
Mhm.
What happened, we were all online, we all defended or distributed out along a trench line in 1- and 2-man bunkers. A select group of people were chosen for patrol duty, and which in our case consisted of going out and in special probing missions in the event that a lookout had discovered some noise or had some warning that something was afoot, and we would have to go out and investigate. Other times there were people who had actually gotten into trouble, and we would go out and bring them back. We also responded to direct patrols. We would be the point squad that went out. And in addition, recon patrols at the company level.
Now, what kind of weapon did you carry?
At that time, I had a BAR, but most of the time on patrols, we didn't go out with such heavy weapons. We went out with rifles. There might have been one person with a BAR, but most of the time they were not.
What was life like in these bunkers and trenches?
Well, I can describe it a little bit. It was worrisome. One of the unusual things at the time that we were there, that I was there and in the service, we had just undergone integration.
Mm-hmm.
And that occurred in the training camps and in the schools and so forth. But as far as I could see, and my experience in Korea, it did not occur in the combat zones. And for some reason, and I certainly admire the person that was my bunker mate, but in my bunker mate, I had shared it with the only Black American in our company. And to get there, I asked him about it because it was very obvious to us. We went through training. They split us up racially, depending on where we were going. And he had gone through some political, had some pull or something to get into a combat situation. And he was largely ignored by the rest of the troops. So I just found that he had a lot of courage and not very many friends. And he was a real nice guy.
Were your bunkers good enough to withstand the cold and the elements? Or?
Not really. They would have, obviously they were sheltered. They were constructed to withstand almost a direct hit from a mortar shell and that sort of thing. But most of it, when the hill had only been recovered like the week before, so the bunkers were in somewhat of a torn down state, so we were replacing them and building them up again. With sandbags.
How were they against mortar attacks? You obviously were there under mortar fire.
I wasn't there under heavy mortar fire,
Okay.
but occasionally, like one time I pitched a soda can over the edge of the trench, and the Chinese immediately hit the spot where I was standing with a 75 recoilless rifle round. That didn't throw anything over the side of the trench after that.
How did you feel the first times you were out in that combat zone?
Apprehensive. But we'd gone through some very excellent training in school, and we were trained to, we were trained to go out on patrols, but all of the patrols that we were trained in, nothing went as scheduled. I mean, something always went wrong, either by plan or that we didn't know about, or by some unfortunate activity on our mistake on our own part. But apart from that, I guess that prepared me for someone to expect something to go wrong. So,
did you have any contact with the South Korean Army at all?
with the what?
The South Korean Army?
We
Were
had
there units around you?
Yes, we had with the South Korean Army. We had I can't remember what they called them, but
Rocks?
well, they called them rocks. But there was a special name for a soldier from the South Korean Army that was assigned temporarily to an American unit to serve as a guide or as someone familiar with the terrain and with the people. And we had such an individual with us, and he would go with us on patrols occasionally. He was not with us on the night that we were ambushed. Those people that they had with us were not people that we always were able to trust. And that, I guess that's to be expected. We aren't seeing anything different in Iraq today, or it doesn't surprise me at all.
Was your equipment and clothing adequate?
At the time I was there, yes. It was the summertime. We didn't have any adverse conditions or anything. I'm glad we weren't there in the winter. Hopefully at that time they had adequate clothing for the winter.
Now, in this form, you talked about your initial officer was West Point, and
That was the captain. Company commander.
And then you had a change in command. Could you talk about
That was a platoon.
Okay.
At the platoon level. And that's when we got hit. But that officer came up, and it come up the day before apparently, and he was the one that asked for the patrol and tried to organize it, and he planned according, I'm sure, the way that he'd been taught,
Mm-hmm.
was not the way we would have ordinarily done it. We got started late, so that it gave the enemy time to be entrenched or located along some route that we might take. And so we just gave them plenty of time before we got out there. We walked right into it.
So you also didn't have anyone from the South Korean Army with you at the
No,
time?
but we did have a doc with us from the Canine Corps,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a dog handler. We had 9 people in that particular patrol, and we were going out. In Korea, they had little dikes along their fields that they worked, and we walked along across the top of the dike, which wouldn't be too difficult for the Chinese to realize that a patrol might come out that way rather than through the field.
Mm-hmm.
And
When was this?
that was the night of July 10th. I'd been up there about approximately 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Could you continue describing the patrol? Do you think if you had a seasoned officer with you, this would have not happened?
I think it'd been a far better chance if
Mhm.
it not have happened.
Okay, could you describe the patrol?
Well, apparently the dog never smelled them, and they were apparently located to our left as we were going along the dike. And there came a point where we heard a brief noise, and so we hit the deck. And no sooner did we hit the deck, the lieutenant was right beside me on my left side, and the attack came from the left. There were no gunfire, it was all a grenade attack. And I was hit about 3 times at least. I'd be blown up in the air and come down, and there'd be another one that completely blew my flak jacket away and broke the stock on my rifle. And when I'm not sure that I was out or anything, but when it was over with, I don't believe I was out, but when it was over with, I just remember it being so quiet. The lieutenant was gone, and I wasn't aware of anyone else around me at all. And I wasn't sure that the enemy, I was not sure that the enemy was gone or where they were. But it was my responsibility. I was the flare man that night, which meant that I had the rifle with the launcher, the flare launcher on it, plus all the flares in my pocket. We had different colors. Green one to announce that when we were coming back, to let the front lines know, particularly the lookouts, that we were coming in and we were friendly. And another one was a red one, which was a flare to be used if we were hit and needed help. So my first thought was to, since there wasn't anybody to say, fire it, I stood up and fired it. And that's when I realized that I'd been hit. And didn't have a stock in my rifle, but I still fired it and cleared the chamber and got ready to fire live ammunition if I had to. I went down, and from then on I couldn't get up any longer.
Where had you been hit?
In the head, and in my chest, stomach, buttocks, my left hip and leg. So I was down and just couldn't get up. And still remained quiet for a long time. And then I began to hear some of the other troops starting to stir around a little bit. And I had landed on when I fell down, I apparently landed on the telephone that you've been carrying out there. Believe it or not, there's some other thing he had us do was to string a telephone wire with us. And I landed on the phone. And the phone was going, this is, I don't know, the red dog was looking for the crazy fox or something. And I talked to one of the other fellows and I said, move me, I think I'm laying, I can hear something.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got on the line, and we needed to find out where we were, so that they would know where we were. So I asked for them to fire what we call bench firing to selected benchmarks out there. So we could say, oh, that's about 300 yards to our right, and, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So with two benchmarks firing, then they sent out a patrol and about a platoon of men to bring us back. And it took them a couple of hours or so to get out there, and then they carried us back on the ones that couldn't walk, myself included, back on stretchers.
Now, how many had been hit in your unit? You had a 9-man patrol?
Yeah, there's 7 of us hit. There were 2 that weren't, and apparently the 3rd. But I guess that would have made it 6, but to my knowledge, the lieutenant was not hit, plus 2 others. The dog was actually died.
Did any die from their wounds, or?
Not that I know of. Mm-hmm. The point man, who was my squad leader, he lost his eye. The dog handler, who was in line directly in front of me, was a platoon, or the point man, and the next in line was the dog handler, and then myself and the lieutenant, and then we were followed by the remainder of the patrol.
No, you alluded to the fact that the lieutenant was to your left,
Mm-hmm.
and he disappeared.
Yeah, till we got back to the front lines, he was there.
So you don't know where he went?
No. I told him where I thought he went.
Mm-hmm. Where was that?
I was told by the chaplain not to talk so nasty. And I said, well, I made my peace with God, and I'm not worried about where I'm going. Everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, you were in the hospital for a while.
Yeah, I didn't really get out until...
Where did they send you?
well, first we went back through the Battalion H Center and then to a MASH unit. And that was all by jeep and ambulance. At the MASH unit, they really didn't know what to do with me because of the head wounds and the stomach wounds and the chest wounds. They didn't know where they had to operate first. And of course, you know, there were other people who were not wounded as seriously, but still needed immediate attention. And so those people received it, and I was just kind of set aside until they had time to, they still didn't know what to do. And after about 2 or 3 days, 2 days, they flew me out by helicopter to a Navy hospital ship, the Haven,
Mm-hmm.
at Inchon Harbor. And I was there a couple of weeks. Before I was wounded, I weighed about 185 pounds. And I went to the hospital ship, and when they finally weighed me, which is maybe like a week and a half later, I was down to about 145. But you lose a lot of weight in a hurry, you
Mhm.
see that. And they did an excellent job there in the hospital ship. It was, and while we were there in the hospital ship, the July 27th came around, you know, the end of the war, the end of the police action.
Mhm.
And we had a lot of casualties coming into the ship at that time, because that's when, just before the police action ended, there were a lot of trading back and forth. They were jockeying for position, the Chinese were. So we had a lot of casualties then. Then I was flown out to the Tokyo Army Hospital shortly after the war ended, and I was there from about the 1st of September, somewhere thereabouts. I was sent to a reconditioning center called Camp O'Neill, and we were rehabilitated, you know, so that we could handle ourselves and get around. While we were there, it was very interesting. At Camp O'Neill was a place where they brought back the Turkish battalion, what was left of them, who had been prisoners of war. They'd been taken early in the war and held prisoners by the North Koreans. They were repatriated back at the end of the war. And they were there, along with a company of, or a number of Greek soldiers who were there at the same time. And it was a lot of fun watching those guys down at the NCO club where we party at night and that sort of thing. Challenge each other in a friendly way. It was, you know, it was different.
How long basically were you in medical care for these wounds?
I got out of Omiya in October, late October. And at the time I really was expecting to come back to the States because I was in no shape for field duty. And apparently they decided to assign me to a hospital because they knew I would need additional care and diet and so forth to build up my weight and everything. So they stationed me at a hospital in Yokohama. That was the 8168 AU. And I was there for the remainder from that November through the following September.
Were you assigned any duties?
Yes, I was. I was assigned to their Special Services and Training Unit, and I replaced a staff sergeant that was being sent back to the United States, and I had his job then from then on. And responsibilities for that were the training of the hospital staff, enlisted, and the officer staff as to how to set up field operations and, you know, retain their military skills.
So you were assigned duties there, but you also were getting kind of rehab too?
Yeah.
At the same time?
Right. And then the other thing, I had administrative responsibility for the hobby shop, for the programs that were put on by the Red Cross, you know, if they serve donuts and that kind of thing. Movie programs for the patients in the hospital. Had a staff of Japanese technicians and so forth, and they ran projectors and that sort of thing. And the sports programs that we put on for the enlisted men, baseball teams and that kind of thing.
Did you ever see any USO shows and all?
Oh, yes. They came over, they were small groups that came over. Plus, we were given money to hire Japanese, Indian Japanese entertainers, mostly singers and that sort of thing. They were very good at imitating Johnny Ray and people like that. And those were all shows we put on for the hospital patients.
Now, you said that in this forum that there were two people that you thought were people that kind of inspired you. You remember the most. One was later became a chaplain and the black man that you served with.
Yeah.
Could you talk about the chaplain?
Yeah,
friend?
His name was George Crow, and he was from Orchard Park, here nearby. He still lives in the area. As I said, there were about 25 of us that came in together. George and I were in the same squad in basic training, as were 3 or 4 others that in the group with us all in the same squad. And George went on earlier into Korea than I did, and he became a forward post observer for the artillery. This was in basic training with our heavy weapons training. We learned a lot about long distance, the 4.5 mortars and that sort of thing. And they were very short of forward observers, so George got that job. He wound up going out as a master sergeant and did very, very credibly. And became a Baptist minister after he came out. And that's what he's been doing.
Okay. How did your parents, how did they learn about your wounding?
Same way, I guess, everybody did through the telegram in those days. And they didn't fully understand what the telegrams meant or anything. And I can relate a lot to that now because one of our middle son was in the Marines during the 80s. And one morning I was driving to work and I knew that he was in the Mediterranean on a deployment. And I knew the name of the ship, as they told us. And I heard that a helicopter had crashed in southern France in the Alps. And it was from his ship, the Guadalcanal. And I called my wife immediately, and I got to work on it. But I didn't, didn't want her to hear it from television, hear it from me. And I did, and she called the Marine Corps. And they immediately said, well, we're not releasing any information on people who were on the helicopter. But tell me the name of your son. And she told them the name of our son's name. And they said, well, we can tell you that he was not on the helicopter. And he was not involved. Of course, he saw it all, because he had landed with a previous helicopter, and he helped go down and bring out the remains of the people who were on the helicopter. So, but that kind of information did not come to my parents.
Okay, how did you return to the States?
At the end of my tour, we came back by boat again, and came through, got out in New Jersey.
And that's where you were discharged?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was in September '54?
Yes, at the end of September.
Did you ever make use of the GI Bill?
I did. First of all, they wouldn't let me out of the service until I agreed to go to the report to the hospital here in Buffalo. In fact, they said, we're not going to let you out unless you sign a paper that says you go in. So I signed the paper and I went in. And
What kind of care were you still receiving?
well, I wasn't receiving any longer any
Oh,
care.
okay.
But they did an evaluation and gave me 60% disability. And I didn't think I deserved it at the time, but I found out that when you get a little older, it hurts. But later on, as I said, I had one year of college education prior to going in. And I worked here locally with a company called Naval. And several years after I was back, I decided to go in and get some additional education. And I found out that I should have known it all along, that they would pay, they paid for everything. That all I had to do was take a test that showed that my aptitude qualified me to take an engineering course. And I was able to get my undergraduate degree in electrical engineering at UB, and subsequently a very good job with Battelle Memorial Institute in Columbus, Ohio. And there I attended, went through graduate school at Ohio State.
Okay.
And I'm under care at the VA hospital now.
Did you, obviously, you joined veterans organizations?
Yes, I did not join a veterans organization until I retired.
Oh, okay. What organizations? I know the VFW.
Right, the VFW, Sergeant Rademacher Post 7795 in Wales. It's a TRICOM post. It's Wales, Marilla, and Elman. I joined there because it's kind of a hometown outfit.
You're active?
Yeah, I'm adjutant there.
Okay. Did you stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
Not really. No.
Well, you picked up this friend 50 years later, I read here.
Right.
So.
And one of the fellows that we went into basic training with introduced me to my wife after we got off.
Okay. How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
I guess it changes your outlook on many things. It was our first, exposure to integration. We were from a rural area and really hadn't been exposed to other people, other types of people other than our own. That was something I remember. It taught me a lot in Korea. I didn't mention this, was the impressions that I got with the Korean people and the Korean children that I saw. And it was apparent to me at that time that there were a lot of them that really didn't appreciate our being there. For whatever reason, they associated, they associated the misery and the turmoil that we're going through to be part of our responsibility. And at that time, it caused me to wonder what business we had, or what divine direction it was that there might have been that would cause us to think that we should be telling other people how they must live. And I guess that's an impression that
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much for your interview.
Thank you.